All right. Hey, we are live. Live to me saying oh shit because I'm getting a phone call from my mom. But anyway, we're here with the Bellator Vivisection. I'm Zane Simon. I'm joined by Eddie Mercado and Victor Rodriguez. We are here to talk about this upcoming Bellator Italiano card and Bellator's debut show outside the U.S. It's kind of a weird card, actually. Like a lot of Bellator cards are kind of weird. It's basically a five-fight main card that sits alongside or on top of potentially a Bellator kickboxing show that will be shown on 1 week tape delay. So if you want to watch Bellator kickboxing, you're gonna have to wait a week, but they'll also have a Bellator MMA show that you'll be able to watch apparently.
I wonder if
On
there's going to be like a live stream for that, maybe. Like
I don't know.
underground
I
kind
think
of.
we're looking into it because we want to cover it, but as of this moment, I have no idea what what is actually going to be on offer for Bellator's kickboxing event in terms of watching it live. We'll talk about it a little at the end of the show, but we're here to talk about this short MMA show of Bellator in Italy first. What do you guys think? Does this look like something that you guys are particularly excited for? Eddie?
Um, I mean, I am drawn to it. I don't think a casual fan would be drawn to it in the same sort of way. And in fact, I don't think they'll recognize any names off the card. I mean, maybe Pitbull and maybe Alessio Sakara from back in the UFC days, but
Sakara is probably the dude that they'll recognize most.
yeah. And I don't even know if that's a good thing. You know. I mean, I like Alessio. I've always been a fan of him. So I will, I'm interested to see where he's at this stage in his career. And I'm interested to see the addition of Kevin Souza to Bellator, new free agent who just went over. So I'm curious how he's going to fit in. I'm curious how Patricky Pitbull is going to do. He's been kind of hit or miss lately. So I mean, I'm real interested in like his career path, so to speak. I'm not sure what's up with him. A couple prospects in AJ McKee Jr. and Anastasia Yankova. I'm excited to see what they're all about. So I mean, yeah, I'm interested in it.
Vic, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of those cards that's really going to. It seems set up in a manner in which the likelihood of you seeing some very decent action is high. Not necessarily the fairest of matchups in these cases, in some of these, and not some of the best fighters that they could have put on to break into a new market. But then again, it seems like this is more of keeping some relatively big names on the card to help the co-branding with the kickboxing thing and kind of get into some of that expansion, which I'm sure we'll touch upon a bit later. I don't know. I mean, it seems like they're juggling a couple of things, probably making some investors happy and kind of bringing some kind of big um, stuff over there to Italy. I don't know how well this will play with that demographic, but we'll see. It's not a bad card by any means. It's certainly worth watching. It's certainly at least worth checking out, and that's going to be kind of a problem to do live, but we're going to
Is
get to
it
that
is it
too.
the Ryan Bader's boxing of fight cards? You'd say.
Oh no. We're not. Our buddy Ben Cohen is going to live forever just for that right there.
All right. Anyway, so it's I'm really interested in the main card fight. The rest of it I really couldn't care much about. But let's dive into the undercard or into the first main card bout and Daniel Michelli versus Daniela Scatizzi. What do you think about this, Eddie?
Um, damn, Daniel! I think there's going to be a whole lot of that. I had to. I had to.
No, you didn't.
No, I mean, I'm interested. I think it'll be a fun, entertaining fight that lacks a certain technical caliber, but will have every bit of balls and heart that you come to expect from Italian fighters that we've seen. We don't really see too many like upper echelon guys coming from Italy for whatever
No,
reason.
it's just not a very big or deep MMA scene over there.
It really isn't, which is kind of odd. You think, or at least I would think that it would be a little bigger than it is. But in this fight, you got two guys who are just super aggressive, decent grapplers. They swing crazy. Melli, I've seen him get out of a couple submissions. He seems to favor body lock takedowns. And on the other side, Skutitsky, maybe. He
right.
He kind of reminds me.
Polish now.
Skutitsky or Scud. Yeah, I mean the double Z.
You're just adding letters because you feel like it now. This
Well, no, in Italian when you have the two Z's, right? Like pizza.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Well, anyways.
Whatever.
All right, so yeah, I mean.
So you said some stuff about it, Vic. What do you think about this fight?
I think it's gonna be sloppy as hell. This is, and I'm glad, Eddie, that you put it as politely as you did, because I just can't really, I'm not saying this isn't gonna be fun. I just don't really see how this is not perhaps the best representation that you could have. Now, curiously enough, both of these guys have fights already scheduled for the Venator event in May that Pajares is going to be on with Mayhem Miller and all these other cats. So it was starting off with Melli, who's 2-0 as a professional. I mean, he's very erratic. It's very much swing and cling for both of these guys, actually. Skutisi's 6-2. 4 TKOs and 1 submission, but it's how he gets to the positions that he wants. It's kind of weird, It's when you see that, okay, they start off with a couple of feints and jabs, and then when thing heats up, when the fight actually starts to get a little too intense, all hell breaks loose, and it's just, I'm going to hug this guy, we're going to go to the ground, and then it's just going to be punchy face and scrambles. Skutisi's very reliant on his athleticism. He's got decent cardio. I want to certainly give him that.
Okay, winner. We've already talked about this fight way too much. It's a terrible fight.
Yeah.
Winner.
I'm going to probably go with Scuderi based on experience and better conditioning. But seriously, yeah.
Hold on. I think the real story here is the fact that Scuderi's fights were filmed with the Google Glass, which are those glasses.
Yeah.
Which I think is very entertaining. Gives us a special perspective. Almost like the Pride days when the ref was rocking the glasses, but like HD. It's really interesting. And I think.
Yeah, it's one of the most Euro things that you can think of. Like, yeah, an MMA fight with that? Yeah, sure.
And Eddie, I didn't let you pick a winner because you were rambling too long, but who you got?
Italy. Italy wins this fight.
Okay. Italy might lose this fight, too.
My G. Look at that. That's good.
All right, Vic. Anastasia Yankova, Angela Pink.
Oh, God. All right. Angela Pink is making her pro debut, but she's currently 1-4 as an amateur. Okay, 2 TKOs, 2 submission losses. She is fighting out of Jiu-Jitsu, but she doesn't fight like it. She's very tentative, very gun shy. She seems to want to go for counters with her striking, and then she gets taken down with ease, and it's just not pretty. So Yankova's obviously brought in to style on her, a very seasoned and well-conditioned kickboxer who's not a slouch on the ground. This really doesn't have to happen. It's kind of a mercy killing. So, yeah, Yankova, whatever.
Eddie, you got any different thoughts on that?
Well, I think, not on the outcome, but I think Yankova was an excellent addition to Bellator because she fits in really well with their brand as far
Hot
as
chicks?
spectacle. Well, hot chicks, but, more importantly, the spectacle side of it. I've seen this chick come to the ring in, a Cinderella carriage and get out in an evening gown, she'll come out in these masks.
Touch, isn't it? That's where that comes from.
Yeah, that's more EFN, if anything, than her or Bellator. But no, the point's still. I get it.
I mean, Bellator, they're all about the spectacle nowadays. They're drawing in the casual fan who just wants to see something they've never seen before, and I feel like she fits the mold. As far as her fighting style, she has kickboxing all day, although, we don't really see. I don't feel like it translates that well into MMA. But what I love to see is the fact that she's working on her ground game in these MMA fights. Unlike Joe Schilling. Joe Schilling comes into MMA and he's like, well, I'm just going to kickbox with everybody.
He's getting worked on the ground in these MMA fights. Isn't that kind of similar?
I mean, it's not
a lot of time on your back.
Well, for example, when he fought Kato, you know what I mean?
I know what you're saying. I'm just being a dick.
Stop being a dick, Zane.
No.
No.
He contemplated it. He was like, nah.
Nah.
But yeah, Yankova, I say all day, and I think they're going to keep slow playing her. and allow her to just keep putting on a show, and that's going to make her a superstar. Whether or not she really will be an excellent talent, who cares? Because she's going to bring eyes. So
Yeah. All right, and that brings us to the first super legit prospect on this card, AJ McKee fighting Danilo Belardo. Eddie, what do you think about this fight?
are there any odds for any of these fights?
There are odds from here on up, so I'll be reading them out after this.
I'm excited for this fight because AJ McKee Jr., I feel like he is a very hot prospect. You know, his father was a pretty solid MMA fighter himself. And I think we're going to start to see more of that. You know, we see in like other major sports, you know, like football, you have like Archie Manning, you know, his sons Peyton and Eli turned out to be amazing just because they came up bred for that. Like all the little secrets and the little tidbits here and there that most people have to learn, you know, just through the journey, these guys are getting right up front. Stephen Thompson, another guy, you know, his father was a fighter, he's now a fighter, and like his brother-in-law is a jiu-jitsu guy, and you know, it's just like a family affair.
Lee Meehan.
What's that?
Lee Meehan, Jordan Meehan's dad. He's a good
guy. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we see that on the flip side with Randy Couture and Ryan Couture, but let's not go there.
Well,
let's not go there. I mean, come on now, let's not go there. But McKee, man, I like him. He's got 3 first-round finishes. You know, he did a guillotine slam on someone, which I thought was innovative. He's got really nice straight punches. We've seen him get cut early in a fight, realize it, get pissed off, and put the dude away. I mean, he's got awesome instincts. He's got really nice reflexes. Sometimes he'll hold his hands a little too low and rely on his athleticism a little too much, and that could, you know, get him in trouble. But the guy he's fighting, Danilo Belardo, I mean, I don't know. He's fought like one guy with a winning record. You know, he's got some pretty fast ground and pound, and he will change levels for a takedown. But I'm not sure if he's on the same kind of, not only athletic, but just technical. I don't think he's on the technical level of AJ here. So I got to go AJ McKee. I don't see why he won't get the finish, honestly. So.
Vic, you got any better things to say about Belardo here?
Well, here's the problem with Belardo. On the one hand, he appears to be, as best I could find, 0-3 as an amateur. I don't know what the amateur scene looks like in Italy or, you know, the region, I guess, the expanded region where he's at. But he is 5-0 as a professional with 2 TKOs.
5-3, right? Or are those 3 bouts amateur bouts?
The 3 were amateur bouts.
No, I haven't thought it out. Well, okay, all right. Well, the thing is, you know, he's got decent takedown defense, but it's just not really going to save him. His boxing is serviceable. His timing is okay, but AJ McKee is just too much. He's too good. You know, he's fast. His scrambles to back takes are just outstanding. 3-0 as a professional. 5-1 as an amateur with 2 submissions and a knockout. I mean, he's just one of those guys who, you know, again, this is like what you really want out of a second-generation fighter or athlete in general. It's kind of like Dale Curry having his son Seth in the NBA. You go, man, these guys are doing some incredible shit. Well, this is the guy to keep your eye on. And what the best thing about it is that AJ McKee is fighting guys who, you know, they're not scrubs, but they're bringing him along slowly enough with guys that are not maybe as experienced. You know, they're not world beaters just yet, but they're really at a median level that he can prove himself and test himself. And he's just really acing it so far. So, you know, just relentless with his wrestling, great pace, and he's just absolutely fearless. I think really we're going to see a hell of a showcase here from McKee. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a shame that it's not exactly a squash match, but it's going to probably end up looking like one anyway because McKee has that much upside.
Well, the odds certainly reflect that. McKee is the favorite, -869 to -925.
Jesus.
Belardo, the underdog, +606 down to +550. So
Jesus.
Bettors are the bookies and the bettors are not having any of Belardo in this fight.
No.
That brings us to the co-main event. Like I said, this is a really short card. Alessio Sakara versus Brian Rogers. Kind of a weird fight. Vic, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think weird is a bit of an understatement, really. You got Brian Rogers, who was a guy who came off of the regional scene, kind of burst into some of these large organizations when he started off with, he had that one fight in Strikeforce back in 2011. Then he ended up in Bellator and just sort of started alternating wins and losses. And he's had some rough spots, maybe one win, two losses, and he's doing all this, losing to guys that hit really hard. And in some cases, some decisions. Some guys that are able to capitalize on his cardio not being at 100% in some instances. Now, he's going to be fighting a guy in Alessio Sakara who hasn't fought in some time. He hasn't fought since September. But prior to that, he took almost a year off. He had a very sad ending to his UFC career where he lost to Chris Weidman, then he had 3 straight losses in which he was finished, then a no contest after he left the UFC. I don't know. I'm kind of wondering if Alessio Sakara really should be doing MMA still at this point. He's taken so much damage. He's not the guy that was going out there knocking dudes out earlier in his career. He's just not that anymore. And I don't think we're going to see the sort of Andrei Arlovsky sort of resurgence or anything like that. So I really got to side with Rogers on this, and it makes me a little sad because the hometown guy, he appears to be somewhat popular in Italy, but Sakara just he's really for his own well-being. I don't really like the way this is going to go.
Yeah, Eddie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a freak show fight for me. I feel like Brian Rogers is always in freak show fights, and he's just that kind of guy. Like, he's never going to have that, top flight cardio. He's never really going to have that top flight technique, but he's always game, and he's not in too many boring fights. I'll say that. I think he's super athletic, and has been starting to throw leg kicks. He's added that. He's really good for at least one explosive takedown in the fight. I mean, we've seen this consistently. He gets at least one really beautiful, just takedown. But other than that, I mean, I just don't. It's hard to get a read on Brian Rogers. Like, is he good? Is he not good? He's been fighting since 2008. It's just so weird for me.
He's good. He's just wildly inconsistent.
Right, but are you good then? Well, of course there's levels to this shit, but
yeah,
it's just hard to it's hard for me to like place him. Like, he's kind of like a gatekeeper, I guess. But I mean, Alessio Sakara, how do you gauge this guy? He had 15 UFC fights. He was 6-8-1. Half the fights were at 205. Half the fights were at 185. This fight's at 205. He's been fighting since 2002. I mean, I just don't know with this guy. I feel like in his most recent fights, his boxing has looked phenomenal. Like, his hands have looked crisp, sharp, fast, brutal. I mean, I like what I was seeing. On the same token, though, in those fights, he's starting to be afflicted by, like, the weirdness, and that's what I'll call it. Like, if you look at Ken Shamrock, he is plagued by weirdness. Like, all his fights are just weird. Like, something weird happens. And I feel like Alessio is going down that path. Like, his fight in 2014, like, he hurt his arm all weird. Like, something happened to his arm.
Torn bicep.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's right. And it looked all weird. But for some reason, it was ruled a no contest. But in the very next fight, he fights a guy, and the guy, I think he hurts his hand or something. And they stop, and it's a weird stoppage, but it's ruled a TKO. So, like, I don't, like, what's going on here?
Yeah,
like, what's really going on?
He's got that Pudzianowski thing where, like, if he's even sitting in the building, some weird shit is going to happen. He just attracts it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the weirdness is following Sakara around. So I'm just going to stay away from him, and I'm just going to pit Rogers just for being the more regularly fighting person.
Yeah, a big check mark in Rogers' favor here, too, is that Sakara, win or lose, has not left the first round in a while. And even when Rogers tends to lose, it tends to be after he kind of gasses out and, like, slows down in later rounds. And then
Hold on, Zane. Are you implying that Rogers has the better cardio here?
No, I'm implying that Alessio Sakara has a habit of getting knocked out or stopped in the first round, and Brian Rogers tends to get knocked out or stopped in the second and third rounds. And so
Okay.
in that battle, I'm picking Rogers to be able to be more. I'm picking him to
Get
win
out of the
basically.
first round.
Um, the only one who did knock him out early was Rafael Carvalho, who's really a very dangerous striker right now in a
Oh
way.
yeah, yeah.
Sakara can be, but is not trustable. So
No,
Does this fight have any relevance at all?
no,
absolutely not. Absolutely,
not even a little.
this is throwing a bone to the locals and
Yep.
whatever corporate head decided that this was the
Well,
right move to make.
it's a way to get Sakara on an Italy card in an action fight that should be fun. Like
Yeah.
it should be an action fight that should be fun.
Why are they even going to Italy though? I'm not sure.
Because it's a market that the UFC is fundamentally uninterested in.
Yeah, and apparently there seems to be some portion of the Viacom investment, whatever. Some people there, I guess, have some sort of vested interest in having shoring up some business there, and not only that, but the crossover with the kickboxing thing. That really seems to be the meat of this sort of thing. And so they
Yeah,
might use this as they're probably going to use that as a bit of a launching pad for the Bellator kickboxing. Like,
and
see, we have this too.
it's just smart to if you're going to expand internationally, try to find markets that the UFC isn't trying to dominate because those are markets like they'll be smaller, but they're not going to be. You have more of a chance to establish some sort of foothold there.
Yeah.
Whereas if they went into like England, is England really going to be interested in a UFC or Australia? Are they really going to be interested in a Bellator fight?
I mean,
Probably not.
you get enough British fighters, maybe, but it's a roll of the dice when you've got so much when the UFC's got their claws that deep in.
Yeah. Whereas Italy, no, but UFC's not going to Italy. They don't care.
Yeah,
Um,
they have like one Italian fighter maybe.
do they have any?
Yeah, he
they
just
had
lost,
the
actually,
Chico
on the
fought
last
this
card.
week. I think they got another guy.
Oh, let's go to
I don't remember.
Chirico, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, odds on this fight: Sakara is the underdog, plus 134 to 130. Brian Rogers the favorite, minus 156 to 160. So close odds. That's fine. They're both guys that lose a lot. It's not, neither of them should be that highly favorited. So,
Yeah.
or highly favored. That brings us to the main event, the really solid, interesting fight on this card. Tricky Pitbull versus Edmilson Kevin Souza. This should be an action fight. Eddie, what are your thoughts on it?
I'm super pumped for this because I think someone's going to sleep. I really think someone's going to be taking a nap. So Kevin Souza recently signed free agent, left the UFC. He did pretty well in the UFC, actually.
Yeah, really solid fighter.
I mean, I think he's decent, and I'm a little surprised that he left. I mean, was that just testing free agency, or
No,
did he get cut?
they didn't even try to. I think he didn't take a contract offer when they like when his contract was coming up. I don't know if he didn't get one or if he just didn't take one. But from what I heard is the UFC just made no interest in re-signing him whatsoever. Like once it became like he's not going to re-sign before his last fight, we're not interested in having him.
Okay. Well, with that being said, maybe he'll do something to Bellator. I feel like they lack talent, so it's not that difficult to be pretty decent and, get a little bit ahead. Oh man, Souza though, he's fun to watch. He's 3-1 in the UFC. We've seen him in brawls where he's gotten rocked and he come back to rock the other guy and pull out the win. We've seen him be held down and get choked out by Chad Scully in his last fight. However, he did knock down Skelly with that beautiful left hook. And that's another thing. Souza finishes his punching combos with his left hook, and I love that because that's how he catches guys. They think he's just overextended on the right, and then they start swinging on him, but here comes that giant left. His reach is ridiculous. Like, he's got insanely long arms. He's got really long legs, too. It's weird. It's like no torso. It's just like arms and legs, But the dude's good. He's been submitted in each of his losses, but I've also seen him escape some pretty tight submissions. So he's definitely been working on that, I must say. And then you got Patricky Pitbull, who has been the personification of inconsistency. He's winning, he's losing, he's winning, he's losing. And, he lost against Derek Anderson the second time they fought, and I feel like maybe he won that fight, but not only that, but he could have – it shouldn't have been as close as it was. I feel like he had the significant advantage on the ground, and he just – I don't know if he was tired or whatever, but he didn't really try to keep the fight on the ground. Like, he was willing to bang it out with this guy. And I kind of feel like this fight might mirror that fight a little bit. Souza's the same height as Derek Anderson, and Pitbull needs to be inside to do his damage, as we saw against Ryan Couture, who I hope he's recovered, because that was scary. What Pitbull did to him, I mean, that was definitely a scary moment. But I don't know. Pitbull has the grappling edge here. Like, it's period. He's the better grappler here. I think he's the better wrestler here. He's the better striker here, but for some reason I feel like Souza is awkward enough to catch Pitbull at the end of his punches.
Pick him.
I really want to pick him, but I just feel like it's stupid because Souza is completely capable of getting knocked out because of being over-aggressive and lacking a certain fluidity to his style.
He's never been knocked out, though.
Yeah, but he's been rocked and dropped. And those were by guys who are not Pitbull. You know what I mean? If Pitbull was in those opportunities, Souza would have been sleeping. I mean, that's just – Pitbull's a beast. Like, his power punches are phenomenal and scary. And I think Pitbull has the edge in kicking, too. I think he's the better kickboxer.
Souza's not a kicker at all.
Yeah. He should develop that, though. He could probably kick someone from the other side of the octagon.
He keeps a really wide, low stance for his boxing, which makes it hard to kick.
And so he doesn't get taken down.
Yeah.
And that's also why he keeps his hands a little bit low.
Yep.
And you'll see that. His hands stay in the same place, right? And, like, if he's more upright, his hands stay low. And if he crouches down, his hands are same spot. But I'm just so on the fence about this one. I really want to pick Souza here because my gut is saying Souza is going to win. Okay,
so
this.
Vic, Eddie's taking the coward's way out. What's your pick?
I'll pick Souza.
Yes.
I'm picking
All right,
Souza.
now I've tricked Eddie into betraying his better judgment. Vic, what's your pick?
Oh, God. I was hoping you wouldn't do that. I was going to pick Souza, actually. That's the thing. Like, I mean, I could just to be the contrarian here, just to shit in your oatmeal. I should pick Pitbull, but no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pick Souza. Look, Souza's had far more consistent. Oh, pardon me. Excuse me.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, Souza has.
Here. Okay,
Yeah.
I will say this. I talked to Pitbull about this fight, and the one thing I will say before Vic does his, once he's done coughing and all that, but before he does this thing, is that he does know that he has to stop trying to fight to make fans happy. That was his thing. He's like, I got to stop just saying, oh, I need to put on action fights. I need to actually make sure I go out and do the things to win rounds.
And that's a great thing for him to realize because he's got a tendency, despite his ground advantage in some of these fights, excuse me, that he still wants to go for the big knockout. He still wants to go for that big, impressive highlight reel shot. And I mean, if he does that with Kevin Souza, I don't know, man. I have enough confidence in his skill and his ability to put guys away that he might just be able to crack them, and that's just not going to be, it really isn't going to work out for him. Souza had that. He did go 3-1 in the UFC. He beat some guys that were actually pretty good: Felipe Arantes, Mark Adiva, and Katsunori Kikuno. Freire has actually beaten guys that are better than that. That's not it just is what it is. But despite that, at this point and at this stage in both of their careers, I really do think that Souza's got a bit more going on for him. Whereas Pitbull seems to be on a bit of not necessarily a decline, but he's kind of in a holding pattern right now. So, I'm picking Souza on this because really it's just not just based on recent performances And his trajectory, I mean, he might have said that to you, sure, but when he actually gets into the fight, will he stay consistent with that? We don't
It's
know.
true.
So I don't trust that.
He is saying that coming off that spectacular knockout of Ryan Couture. So, I mean, it's like, oh, I don't want to put on fights for the fans, even though I just knocked out this guy impressively.
Well, yeah, but it was Ryan Couture. I mean,
Couture wasn't looking that bad in that fight either until he got careless and sort of jumped in with that hook. I mean, you know, it's not like, oh, it was a guarantee that Couture was going to win that fight, especially not standing. But, you know, I mean,
the big mark in Souza's favor in this fight is that he has an incredibly consistent approach. He keeps a low base, he stays right at the end of punching range, and he fires off long combinations, long straight combinations. He works to the body a lot, mixes things up to the body and the head. He does not close himself down into the clinch. He does not stay way outside where he can't hit people. And it's the same approach round after round, which is good. Like that for a striker, that's kind of Pitbull's problem, is that he doesn't tend to have the same approach. He doesn't tend to just like have a good solid, this is how I'm going to win this round approach to his fights. So I don't know, it's a tough fight to pick. I kind of feel like I should lean towards Patricky, partially because I talked to him, partially because the biggest thing I think in Patricky's favor is this is super short notice for Souza.
Yes.
You know, he's taking a fight internationally on short notice. That is rarely a major mark for success. So,
no. And perhaps we should mention this was originally supposed to be Brent Primus taking on Pitbull.
No, Derek Campos, right? I thought it was Derek Campos.
No, first it was Brent Primus, then he got scratched. I don't know what it was. Really? For some reason, he was replaced by Campos, who was then injured, and now Souza's stepping in. So,
yeah. So lots of changes. Interestingly here, everybody seems to be feeling what you guys are feeling. Kevin Souza is the favorite, -141 to -145. Patricky Freire is the underdog, +115 to +119.
I'm surprised. I was almost positive that Pitbull would have been the favorite here.
So, a lot of people are feeling what you're feeling, you know? I'm going Pitbull because he's not coming in on short notice. I think that's the biggest thing. And because I think that he's going to make a concerted effort to be more of a grappler in this fight. But if he can't get takedowns, and if he can't consistently get inside to box, then he's going to end up with big problems.
Yeah. And I think Souza's style kind of, it's going to lure Pitbull into a brawl.
It very easily could.
Which
So
kind
now
of
I'm going to
favors
quickly...
Pitbull, but
What?
I was just saying that kind of favors Pitbull in certain areas, but not if he's got a game plan.
Now, going along with this, and we don't know if people are going to be able to see this live or not. It's supposed to air on tape delay on Spike on April 22nd, so it's certainly not going to be on Spike Live. But whether there'll be some other way to watch it, I can't speak to that. Is Bellator kickboxing card. I'm just going to run down it real quick. We're not going to get into it because this isn't a kickboxing show and it's not live and whatever. You'll just have to, I don't know who half of these people are, and we didn't do any research. But it'll be headlined by Melvin Manhoff versus Alexandru Negria. I'm a little surprised by this because that last time I talked to Manhoff, he said, I'm not taking any more kickboxing fights. That part of my career is pretty much done. And then I talked to him again just like a week ago, and he's like, well, I figure since I've got a title shot already lined up in Bellator, I should do them a favor and take this kickboxing fight and help them get their show started.
A favor that he won't be doing for free.
Yeah, no, he's not doing it for free. But I know Manhoff's pretty close to the end of his career, so it'll be interesting to see, this is kind of probably one of the last very few times we're going to see him. He's probably got 2 or 3 fights left. And
what if he does lose that fight, though? What if he does get knocked out? How horrible would that be for his brand? Will he still get the title shot?
Probably? I think he still probably has the title shot lined up. It's signed and sealed, but...
You know what? I'll say this. I would love to see Manhoff win the title and retire. You know what I mean?
His plan is to win the title, defend it once, and then retire.
After seeing Kobe Bryant score 60 points and come back and win last night in his final game, I would love to see that from MMA fighters.
To be fair to Manhoff, he's going to be fighting Rafael Carvalho for the belt, who is himself a tall kickboxer, and it's a much better fight for him than who was the wrestler that held the belt before?
Halsey.
Oh yeah, Brandon Halsey, who would have just rushed Manhoff to the ground and laid on him.
Mm.
So getting a kickboxer for Manhoff, I mean, Carvalho is dangerous, but that's much better. That's a much better fight for Melvin Manhoff. So probably not going to win it, but my heart goes out to him. Also on this card, Mustafa Haida, Karim Gaji, Raymond Daniels is fighting Francesco Morica. Dennis Kielholtz versus Veronica Vernocchi, and Kevin Ross versus Matteo Taccini. And I know that this also has a Octagon kickboxing co-promotion thing going on, and the Petrosians are fighting on that portion of it, along with some other talent. So should be an interesting kickboxing card if there's a way to watch it. If not, you'll catch it in a week. Anyway, thanks you guys for joining me on this. You can find me on Twitter at TheEddyTime. You can find Eddie on Twitter at TheEddyMercado. You can find Vic on Twitter at VicMRodriguez. You can find all of us on BloodyElbow.com. Give this video a like. That's a thumbs up. Subscribe to MMANation.com, DOTCOM. Over on YouTube. That's where you get all the rest of our videos. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.